Hello and welcome to another Warcraft 3 audio commentary. This is ScryMind, and this is going to be a human versus human game on Echo Isles, though we both were random for this game. It was on the Azeroth solo ladder, and it was a pretty decent game. So I've spawned at the left spawn position, my opponent spawned at the right. He is already scouting immediately with the militia to find out what he's up against. This is going to alert me of his race as well, so fortunate for me to some degree. But the reason that he's doing this this early is because he's also going to go ahead and throw up a scout farm right here, his second farm actually, which is going to allow him to see if I'm coming towards his base, if I'm going to be going for the ogre camp here, or if potentially I may be doing something crazy like going for this marketplace. That's very unlikely this early. It's a pretty solid camp. It's pretty far from my base, but both of us actually are going to be going for the Mountain King and Footman, of course. I've sort of walled off my base as I didn't know what race he was at the beginning.
Job's done. Ready for action.
But I'm going to be doing some harassment, which is one of the reasons why I went for the Mountain King early in this game. I'm going to run over here and scout out some of the common places that he could be creeping, namely this green camp, his natural, and but sort of right off the bat, I'm going to check this mercenary camp to see if he's militia creeping that, and if he is, then my goal is to snag as many peasant kills as possible without losing anything. I sort of forego stealing any of the creeps, as it's going to be really risky against a Mountain King. But if you'll notice, I sort of went by this green camp just to make sure, and come through his base, which is going to sort of alert him. I think he had vision. Yeah, he's got vision there of me running by my army, so I pull these footmen back. I do not want to get bolted. He's already used one of his storm bolts, but notice all these militia are damaged quite a bit here, so I'm going to get, using bolt, I'm going to get 2 kills on these peasants, and it looks like I'm going to get a third one as well, so that's pretty solid. Now he does finish the camp and get level 2. He gets a pretty solid item, pair up to vitality. And so I just run away now. I don't really want to engage him right here near his base. Though losing those militia, he would probably not want to pull any more militia. But he is getting this arcane tower, and you know, he is level 2 on his hero, so as well as having his footman come out immediately right here. So I don't really think it's advantageous for me. I could have stayed on him a little bit better. I should have immediately went and checked this green camp, but I sort of skirted around his base and I didn't catch him creeping that. So I probably could have got another footman kill, but I'm going to come over here and look and see if he's expanding, and I'm going to end up, let's see if he spots me running by here. So I'm going to go for this green camp. Here's another sort of, looking back at this replay, a little bit of a big mistake. Not seeing him go for the expansion, I sort of thought, okay, maybe he's up here doing this ogre camp. I'll have time to do this green camp, and then if he goes to expand or something, should be right there for it. But the timing sort of worked out where we're creeping right next to each other, but I don't really go to check, so that would have been, you know, noticed another several peasants that are damaged, and again, I wish I would have went underneath here and checked up here. That probably would have been the smart thing to do, because one, it sort of avoids his likely path, and you'll notice that he's got 3 peasants here that are damaged, so I could have probably killed all those and prevented this expansion from going up at all. It was really totally pointless to throw that bolt at his level 3 Mountain King, especially since he's got that vitality item. Essentially was not going to get that kill, and I didn't really have enough footmen to hold that surround. I probably would have lost at least 1 or 2 of those, and he could have just town portaled. So more effective would have been going for his units, or definitely more effective would have been if I could have avoided his army just for a little bit and went for those peasants. This game would have been much easier in that case. But again, playing legit and sort of missing the proper timing there messed me up. So he's gonna go ahead and get a footman kill here. He's got 171 mana, so he's got plenty of storm bolts, and I'm only level 2, so this is sort of a not really advantageous moment to fight him. I could have picked up a second hero, but I didn't exactly want to grab a Naga. I mean, it would have been good in that scenario to have the Naga. Probably could have forced the town portal or killed his hero. But the problem with the Naga is going forward, late game, I feel like she would definitely be a liability against a leveled up Mountain King. And again, if he gets a Paladin, you know, the hero focus fire isn't really going to be reliable. So that was sort of the thinking there, not to get the Naga. So I pick up a Berserker here, and I think I actually picked that up from his mercenary camp, but his mine's not crept out. So anyway, I'm going to come here and kill this farm. I already did a bunch of damage to it earlier, so you know, I didn't, at this point it wasn't a lot of time wasted to kill that. It did let him know where my army was, but I definitely need to get level 3 before I want to get level 3 before I engage him again. Simply because the difference between level 1 and 2 Stormbolt is pretty substantial in terms of damage. And I'm going to be pulling militia here. I need to catch up creeping, and I sort of expect that he's probably throwing up an expansion. The fact that I don't have that many units, and that he's got a level 3 Mountain King, makes me very hesitant to run over there and harass that right at this moment. So that's pretty much the reasoning for me not to continue the aggression. So right now at this stage, we've had some back and forth moments here. He's outcrept me a little bit, and he's got that expansion up, which is usually bad news. But I am ahead of him on the tech, so hopefully I can take advantage of that. In terms of the harass, I did a lot of damage to his economy in terms of killing peasants. So hopefully I can get some advantage there. He likely wouldn't, you know, killing those peasants and him towering and getting this expansion is definitely going to slow his tech down. So one thing you have to watch out for, even in Human Mirror, is sometimes if people get an expansion, they might try to go up into, you know, skip tier 2 and go for some sort of tier 3 heavy strategy like mass air. Really depends on what you're getting. My army does not have a lot of anti-air, so I really have to be careful to not get caught with no anti-air later in this game, especially being behind on the economy. Really bad micro here on my end. I definitely could have saved that Paladin if I was playing a little better, but I forced the TP, so I don't really lose too much. I think I killed some of his units there, so you know, it was probably a sort of even trade. I would have preferred to keep that Paladin alive. It wouldn't have been very difficult, honestly, to do it. But at any rate, at this point I've got breakers, and breakers are going to be immune to the feedback of the Arcane Tower, but in terms of pushing the towers, my army is still not really great. I think I have a food count advantage here. Yeah, I've got about 10 food more than him. And in terms of army size, he's got 3 footmen and an ogre mauler. So that's going to be 10, I think 10 food worth of units. So, you know, I should have him covered there. 9, 12, 14, 24. Looks like I have about 24 food of combat units here, not counting the hero. But the problem is the towers are gonna sort of, you know, they're gonna count for quite a lot here trying to fight him there, and also he can, as you've seen, just pick up you know, mercenaries instantly. So I do get a pretty good surround, bolt surround here, and I'm gonna force him to town portal. I think he probably sort of wasted that bolt on the Paladin. He's got plenty of hit points, and you know, he probably could have knocked off a footman or two there. So he's picked up a Blood Mage second. Not that uncommon of a second hero choice. He's pretty solid, especially as a second hero behind a Mountain King, especially against a Mountain King and a Paladin. Now, Bolt obviously is going to... Bolt and Divine Shield can sort of mitigate Mana Siphon, but even still, it's a pretty solid ability to both siphon mana from your hero or units and feed mana to his Mountain King. But the main thing I have to worry about now is his economy is... that expansion staying up is meaning that his economy is really ahead of mine. Now, he might be... He doesn't have a ton of wood right now, and he hasn't produced... he has produced one Griffin Aviary that's not finished, but in terms of like massing air, he doesn't have a ton of wood. Now he's got about 250 here, so so he's not doing that bad on the wood front. But you know, if he builds one or two more Griffin Aviaries, or another production building, maybe upgrades, doesn't look like he's doing any upgrades. That's going to cut into his wood, and I'm going to continue pushing because I feel like I've got to contest this expansion and deal with it before he just masses air or something else and really just hard counters me with the massive units. I've got level 3 and 2 on my heroes, so I've caught up with him in terms of hero levels. Having level 2 on the Paladin is sort of crucial. So just in case he goes for the Paladin kill there, I can use Divine Shield. I'm going to go for his Blood Mage. It's going to be sort of the easier target here. So this is not really a battle he wants to fight, especially away from his towers. I've got healing to sort of prevent myself from losing units. I've got priests. So securing kills is going to be very difficult for him. And a little bit easier for me, since he doesn't have a Paladin, he doesn't have priests, and I think I've still got the larger army, so I was able to force a town portal here. But he does have a Griffin now, so I'm sort of limited on my anti-air. I still have plenty of mana thanks to this Pendant of Energy, so I probably could still fight him even with that one Griffin, but I really hate to fight by towers and a shop. I probably should have just went ahead and just taken the battle, even at a slight disadvantage based on the towers. But overall, I probably could have went ahead and overran his army there. Looking back, just the one Griffin was a little bit of a deterrent. I didn't know if he had like multiple Griffin Aviaries. I just saw this one, so if you had more Griffins coming, that would have been a pretty big problem. But with just the one, it was okay. But again, I didn't really know at the time, so playing a little bit conservatively here. Starting to get rifles now, throwing up another barracks. I figure if he is going to go for air, I might want to go ahead and get some riflemen. Maybe would have been a better choice just to go for like Dragonhawks or something like that, since he actually has knights as well. And again, ground units are going to be more susceptible to again his Mountain King, the Ogre Mauler, Footman, and if he gets Flame Strike, he'll be more susceptible to that. Not to mention being a little bit more annoying to try to deal with pathing and hit and run over trees and stuff. Sometimes that can get a little bit crazy trying to counter air with rifles if they're like harassing your base or whatnot. But again, in sort of this early stage, I feel like rifles are going to be a decent choice, and then again I can sort of transition out to like knights if I want to, if he starts to mass something a little bit different. But anyway, that might have been a little bit of a mistake, but either way, these battles I'm seeming to be holding my own, even though he's got the expansion. Mostly because I've been slowly killing off his units. I've been sort of getting the advantage in these early battles, So his expansion is just sort of keeping him even with me. And I don't know if the Blood Mage was perhaps the best choice. Again, it is one of the choices that is has been used in the human mirror match, and it's pretty solid. But you know, dealing with Bolt and Divine Shield really lessens the effect of Mana Siphon if I'm microing correctly, and you know, otherwise that Blood Mage is going to be sort of vulnerable. And again, one of the things with the Blood Mage is until he gets a Paladin, it's pretty sort of mana intensive. Some of the other heroes, you know, the Paladin specifically, as a second hero, is sort of easier to micro. It's a strength hero. You've got Divine Shield if you get into some trouble. Pretty straightforward stuff. Just being a strength hero, he's a little bit harder to kill there. But also sort of benefited from him town portaling into his base and being stuck momentarily. Though there's only a couple of camps here. I guess he could have crept out these camps a little sooner than he did, which would have been pretty useful. He's almost level 4 on his Mountain King. So he, you know, would have been level 4, but he wouldn't have, don't think he would have gotten level 3 on the Blood Mage, and maybe wouldn't have gotten level 2 on the Paladin. But anyway, I think I'm gonna end up running into him here in a second. And he's still pumping out the Griffins. He's running on 2 production buildings, which again is half as many as I have, though I don't have the economy to really support jumping too high into upkeep. So we're both at the same upkeep level, so he's ahead of me on in terms of income. But this battle isn't really going to be that great for him. I don't have a lot of targets for these Griffins. I don't, you know, I'm not running around with a bunch of Knights. I do have these priests with Inner Fire, which is going to be pretty solid. He doesn't have any actually breakers in his army, so Inner Fire is going to be useful here. Again, also the priests are a little bit less vulnerable when he doesn't have breakers. And notice how easily I can snipe down his Blood Mage and Paladin. This is sort of one of the reasons why it's a little bit risky to go for a Blood Mage, especially the Paladin as well, if you can't level it to 2. That battle was pretty easy. The food counts weren't wildly different there, but like I sort of pointed out, the problem with the Blood Mage, especially if you don't keep items on him, is you know, at any moment you can be sort of vulnerable to you know, hero nuking, especially against level 4 and 5 Mountain King. Again, not having a counter to Inner Fire was sort of a big issue. Rifles are a pretty solid. You know, if you're going to fight a pitched battle with Griffins against rifles, rifles do fairly well usually, you know, in even numbers, especially with Inner Fire and healing, and again, healing from the Paladin as well. So that battle really just, it would have been better for him to use his Griffins a little differently there. He had the towered expansion. His main had one, you know, an arcane tower, so he didn't really have a reason to engage me on open ground. You know, I think his Griffins would have been much more effective sort of harassing my base perhaps, though it is a little risky since he probably was unsure if I had started to make any Griffin aviaries myself. You know, 1 or 2 or 3 Dragonhawks, you know, that especially 3 Dragonhawks, I could have just shackled his all his Griffins if they were alone. Which would have been pretty much just free kills, so, and that would have been a pretty big swing, so he might have been cautious to do that. But so it's kind of similar to some of the situations I missed out on, you know, harassing expansion at the right time, you know, and just pushing into his army when he only had 1 Griffin. Sort of similarly, he probably didn't know quite everything about my army composition, so you have to sort of play accordingly. Now, if you're a map hacker or, you know, scouting a little bit more than we did in this game, then, you know, you can more effectively take advantage of some of those situations. Let's take a look at the score here, though. He mined about, looks like he mined about just under 5,000 more gold than me. No, actually it was 5,000, a little bit more than 5,000 more gold than me. No, sorry. Man, I'm a little bit off today. So, a little bit less than 5,000. So, but he did lose 500, or 600, just about more gold to upkeep. Heroes killed. I won in that category. He hired more mercenaries. Sort of not that big of a deal, but you'll notice he produced a few more units than me, but I ended up killing more than him. Largest army, I was ahead by 8 food. And again, if you try to take into account the fact that he had a bunch of workers at his expansion, that maybe potentially meant he had even a larger food gap there, but I'm not quite sure on that point, as he probably didn't have as many wood peasants as I did there at the end. But regardless, it was a pretty solid game. I felt like, I think the hero choices and a couple of things in the early and mid game sort of tipped the balance for me. One thing was the harass went really well right at the start, killing 3 peasants. Sort of hampered him in terms of teching quick, in terms of massing up. I didn't really lose anything but mana in that harass. I guess I did lose the time it took to walk over there, but pretty good to be able to knock off 3 peasants so easily. And then going forward from there, he got the sort of more vulnerable hero, and expanding. While it is going to put him ahead in terms of economy, in that initial timing, expending all those resources to fast expand and to tower it is going to put him sort of behind in terms of army size generally. So now the mercenary camp again sort of mitigates that. He was able, once the expansion got rolling, it really doesn't take very long to pay off the investment in the expansion for human. When you fast build it, it goes up fairly quickly, and then you immediately start recouping the gold. If it gets up and stays up for even just like a minute or so, you're probably going to be a minute or two, and you should be reaping the rewards there. So and with a mercenary camp right there, you can instantly get a handful of units that are pretty solid, especially at that timing. Now I did buy his Troll Berserker, so that was probably a little bit of an oversight on his part. The Troll Berserker is one of the better mercenaries in terms of cost effectiveness and just general impact on the battles. The Troll Priest has its uses, but in terms of a pitched battle, it has really low hit points, and I think it has really low armor. So, while it's a really good support unit, it dies really quick to any sort of like nuke spells or any focus fire. But it's not quite as expensive as the Troll Berserker, so there's that. And then the Ogre Mauler, it's a pretty solid, kind of like a grunt. It's got a lot of hit points. It does decent DPS. It does cost 4 food and 300 gold. So, but when you need, sort of need an instant jump in your army to fight somebody, it's going to be pretty solid, especially if they're just tier 1 units, or even, even if they have breakers. The Ogre Mauler actually is going to be pretty solid against breakers. just because of the damage type and armor type of those units. So, but anyway, sort of had the right idea to go for air. That was for a long time in this game. That was actually a big weakness in my army. And even at the very end, not having any Dragon Hawks was a little bit of a risky move because it left me open to sort of base harass and all kinds of stuff like that. And again, my base was sort of walled off there, so that would have made it even more annoying trying to deal with Griffins with only riflemen. So that was a little bit of a risk there, but being on the offensive for the majority of the game, I felt like I could sort of cover for that sort of lack of flying anti-air units or towers in my main base. So anyway, that was a pretty close game, I would say. A few breaks here and there, it could have easily gone to him. I got pretty lucky on the harass. Good timing there, and the item, I got a pretty solid item in the Pendant of Mana. So, but anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this, and I got a few tips for the human mirror and just sort of general things about playing. If the more you know about like creep patterns and sort of trends, so you don't have to scout everything all the time, or you don't have to map hack. If you want to look at that as an alternative, it really helps you out. For instance, one of the reasons I was able to get that good start on this game is because I know that players like to go for that mercenary camp, doing militia creeping. Now I did scout, I ran by the green camp, the ogre camp, and the other green camp, so pretty much wherever he went, I was likely to find him. It's possible that he could have, went for some weird sort of, maybe went for the Murlocs first at the bottom, near his natural expansion. In that case, I probably wouldn't have quite caught his army, potentially, and I could have wasted some time trying to look for it. But if he goes for, if he went for either of those 3 creep camps, or even his expansion, if he was creeping his expansion, I probably would have been able to snag some kills there as well. But again, it really helps to know the general patterns. He could have, having that scout farm, he could have been a little bit more conservative in his creeping, which, is one sort of maybe suggestion. He did see my Mountain King and Footman go by. I assume he could have, if he would have been paying some attention to the mini-map. I don't know, but either way, pretty solid game, and hopefully it was entertaining and informative for you. And this is ScryMind signing out.